Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below, your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please email me directly, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Launched back in 2014, the Oris Manufactured Calibre 110 series represents one of the best-kept secrets in watchmaking. While a lot of collectors know Oris for its value-priced sports watches, both divers and pilot, as well as its brand new 5-day power reserve Calibre 400, a lot of folks don't realize that Oris makes high-end manufacture 10-day power reserve dress watch movements and dress watches to go with them. This is the Oris Artelier Calibre 111. The original Calibre 110 launched in 2014 to celebrate 110 years of Oris, and each successive year, Oris has launched a new version of the movement updated to reflect the age of the company. So this is Calibre 111. The watch is stainless steel, 43 millimeters in diameter, remarkably slim for its power reserve and complications, only 12.5 millimeters thick, and then a reasonable 50 millimeters from lug tip to lug tip with a 23 millimeter spacing between the lugs. This watch is, for all intents and purposes, a half-price IWC Portuguese. The timepiece, of course, a manual wind compared to the Portuguese auto. Nevertheless, they're similar in size and style and similarly mechanically accomplished. This watch, though broad, is flat, and you'll note it's actually sliding under my cuff as I wear it. My wrist is 16 centimeters in circumference. I'll pull the cuff back. We'll get a better sense of the watch's size against the entirety of my forearm, and you can see it fits quite well. I could probably fit this watch on a wrist as small as 14 centimeters circumference, and it easily slides underneath the cuff. You can also see there's plenty of clearance on both sides. These lugs are not overhanging my wrist. This watch feels 2, even 3 times its price. The strap is high grade, no calfskin here, large rectangular scale alligator leather, semi-gloss finish, monotone stitch, a folded edge, some bolstering to add body and volume, and then on the underside you can see black calfskin, and this is a brand new factory strap. Oris, not pinching pennies, giving you a full deployant clasp. Certainly a pin buckle would have been appropriate on a watch in this price range and on a dress watch, but a full deployant clasp made of steel with twin trigger release and double folding action is upscale, again, relative to the price and the expectations that you may have for the Oris brand. You can also see that it features clever elements like a pincer system to lock the strap inside of the buckle. Lange does the exact same thing on its highest of high horology watches, the $300,000 watches that need extra security. Lange will give you that. Oris does it for far under $10,000, and this watch being pre-owned, you will get an even better buy. Now the timepiece is 43 millimeters in steel, but that doesn't quite describe how it looks. It looks broad, flat, and handsome. You can see that the lugs are integrated, they're tapered, they're relatively thin when viewed end-on, and they have a diagonal sort of melding with the case, which is to say they don't move straight up and down into a junction with the case. They're actually angled outward on both sides, which is a lovely flourish that I would expect of a Vacheron, not necessarily an Oris. Old-fashioned, broad and narrow, sharply knurled crown with the Oris name, and then we have a shallow domed bezel with a little bit of a gadroon or character line underneath the bezel that runs circumferentially. Slightly domed sapphire crystal. Let me close up this clasp here. Sometimes these little ID tags get in the way. We have a dial that is somewhere between gray and silver. It's definitely not a weak silver white. It's got a little bit of that Audi Avis silver or AMG Alubeam silver to it, plus a metallic sunburst that radiates out from the center. Upscale here, we have Alpha style hands at center, Lancet style hands for constant seconds in the power reserve. We have applique faceted and rhodium-plated indices, which are baton-shaped, and then we have little cabochon outboard of them on a dropped minutes track that circles the center dial. You can see there's a concentric pattern inside the down-stepped constant seconds track, as well as the power reserve. The power reserve a unique one in that it actually moves faster as it approaches the end of its travel. So manual wind, 240 hours of power reserve, and you can see that the little steps representing the individual days grow progressively larger, but in each case, it will take the needle only one day to traverse these escalating arc lengths, and that's because of the cam system used to drive the power reserve. It's supposed to make the rundown of the watch more apparent to the eye and easier to spot before your watch stops. Now we have a little faceted aperture for the date over at 9 o'clock, and the combination of the power reserve and the date, that is the signature of the caliber 111. The original 1110 didn't have a date. The date features that little stepped window, which is nice because it's not a sheer cut through the dial. It doesn't appear abrupt or awkward. It's a nice declining plane from the dial down the step to the disc. Now the watch does include a number of subsidiary setting modes. You pull the crown out all the way and it stops the seconds. I should mention that this watch has one of the tightest actions between crown motion and hand motion that I've ever experienced. There is almost no dead angle in the turning of the crown. That is the angle between the time you start turning and the time the hands start moving. There is no dead angle. It's a remarkably precise setting system. There is also a quick set for the dates. You can rapidly cycle the date, and that's easy to do. The watch, of course, featuring a little bit of lume. It is not a sports watch, but it is a sporty dress watch. Turning it all over, 30 meters water resistant. You can see the movement, caliber 111, with an enormous single mainspring, and I do mean an enormous mainspring. The one spring in that barrel is 1.8 meters long. If you were to stretch it end to end, it would be the height of a man. Taking a look at the profile of the bridges, you can see that the barrel has been circular satin grained, but the bridges are vertical satin, which is quite handsome. There's a rack and pinion micrometric regulator for the balance, which allows for very fine adjustment, and then beat rate and general timing can be adjusted using Edicron keys. So this watch can be adjusted to run potentially very, very precisely. You can see the little seashell-shaped eccentric cam system. So these little seashells, you can see that they're spiraled and asymmetrical. They drive against each other to accelerate the power reserve indicator, and they've got that little sort of, you could say, seashell or maybe involute curve to them that allows them to accelerate the drive of the power reserve indicator as it runs down. Of course, 40 joules, 10 days of power reserve. It boasts of non-linear indication, so that's what they're talking about. The movement's actually quite thin and quite broad, as in total you can see that it is just over 34 millimeters in diameter, which makes this a big movement as these things go. And beaten away at 21.6, it is the total package. It was developed by a consortium of Manufacture Horlogère Vallée de Joux, which is a Festina company, the Technical College of Leloc, and Oris. So a lot of great minds went into the creation of this movement, which is both long-legged and quite accurate. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details of this Oris Artelier Calibre 111.